Okay, it's 9 o'clock and I guess we'll get started here. Good morning. It's nice to see you all here so bright and early. I'm amvans, lapis,
Okay,
it's 9 o'clock and Marie
I
Vans.
guess the rest of the
We'll
time.
get started here. I have a PhD in computer science and recently finished a master's in library and information science at the San Jose State University iSchool. When I'm not playing around in virtual worlds, I am a senior research scientist for HP Lab in Fort Collins, Colorado, where I do document analytics and machine learning on unstructured big data. In virtual world, my main interests include digital literacy, as you will soon see, and the use of virtual worlds in distance education. Today, I'm going to talk about how we can improve digital literacy using virtual worlds. This is work done jointly with Valerie Hill and Elise Donovan-Jones, and there will be a paper published on this in the proceedings for this conference. Okay, so on the agenda for this talk, I will introduce the context and the issues surrounding digital literacy, and I go into some background on it. I then attempt to use previously published works to define digital literacy. After that, I will go into possible solutions, including published attempts as well as our own work here in virtual worlds. Finally, I wrap up with some suggestions on how we can take this work forward. So the first thing we need to talk about is the fact that defining digital literacy is very hard. There are as many definitions out there as there are atoms in the universe. Okay, well, maybe not that many, but enough to make it difficult to agree on a universal definition. Definitions vary, and I give a couple of examples that run the gamut from being able to use web browsers and office products to being able to do everything online and on a computer. But in general, the best definitions include this idea of being able to think critically about and reflect on information while considering social and cultural context as well as identity. And why is this important? Just using the US as an example, a very small percentage of adults are confident with their digital skills and ability to find information online they can trust. They encompass only 17% of the population. And this is based on a published survey referenced at the bottom of this slide. Most likely, this type of survey has been done for other countries, but I am unable to compare them to US literacy rates at this time. That would be really interesting further work. A full 52% find it difficult to determine whether information is trustworthy and are not confident in their computer skills. And in an age when all our kids are born digital natives, only 20% of high school kids can determine whether images they see are actually real. That's actually pretty scary. This dismal state of affair means that those of us in the 17% in the US and other confident folks in other countries have our work cut out for us. So what can we do? Well, the first thing is to increase awareness. And we do that by understanding what it means to be digitally literate for any population. And by this I mean from kids to grandparents, students to teachers, and beyond. As adults, and especially as parents, we recognize the need for our kids to be digitally literate. But the kids themselves may be too young to recognize that what they see or read might not be true. We also need to understand what solutions exist and the gaps that need to be covered. By doing this, we can help to significantly increase the number of digitally literate people. And the tie-in to virtual worlds is that we can use this space to educate people about the issues and solutions, and let them take that information outside of virtual worlds. We can also create a community around digital literacy, which could lead to better solutions in general. So now, to give you some background, I found this report pulled together by the New Media Consortium called the Horizon Report that covers important developments, technologies, challenges, and trends in higher education, K through 12, museums, and libraries. Many of you may know this report, these reports, or this group. NMC is a leader in innovative application of technology to overcome challenges in teaching, learning, and creative expression. Every year, these challenges may change and reflect the current thinking by leaders in each of education, museum, and library areas. I didn't hear that they were recently dismantled because what I was looking at was 2017 reports. So that would be interesting if they were. Oh, that's terrible. They're really put together some great material. That's terrible. Anyway, in the 2017 report for libraries, improvement of digital literacy was identified as an immediate solvable challenge, while online identity was also a solvable challenge, but within a 2 to 3 year adoption timeline. I agree, we do need the work they do. Both of these issues have implications for learning and teaching in virtual worlds. Among other things, virtual worlds can be considered social networking platforms, and as such, can create many occasions for dissemination of misinformation, invasion of privacy, and infringement of copyright. Since libraries and librarians have always played a major role in the development of traditional and digital literacy policies and practices, it makes sense that libraries and librarians with a presence in virtual worlds be involved in implementing best practices for digital literacy. These practices include online identity, meaning privacy and authentication, communication etiquette, and rights and responsibilities, which include fair use and copyright, and the improvement of digital literacy also showed up as a solvable challenge in the 2016 report. So it's showed up two years in a row. However, there is a disagreement between educators on what constitutes digital literacy. Some believe digital literacy is simply competency with a lot of different digital tools for different educational purposes, while others believe it is an indicator of the ability to critically evaluate web resources. As you can see, both are vague and hard to act upon. Although this lack of agreement on the definition of digital literacy has reached critical mass and spurred the drive for a universal definition. So this lack of definition or universal agreement on the skills and knowledge needed for digital literacy leads to confusion about necessary and expected competencies required for 21st century success. This figure here shows a comparison between what in the past was considered traditional literacy and the skills required for success in a digital world. So, for example, we can find information, too much of it now, right? But so instead of looking for it, we now have to vet it for trustworthiness. Instead of just writing, we make videos, we program, we create visualizations. And instead of having static artifacts like books and magazines, we have dynamic assets like this PowerPoint and machinima. The point here is to show how drastically different or traditional and digital literacy really are. So, can we define digital literacy? Well, the American Library Association defines it as the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, understand, evaluate, create, and communicate digital information. UK-based JISC defines it as those capabilities which fit an individual for living, learning, and working in a digital society. In the literature, there are several important works that should be considered when talking about digital literacy. Bowden identified 6 terms used in the literature related to digital literacy, including information literacy, computer literacy, library literacy, media literacy, network literacy, and digital literacy. There may also be different literacies based on different populations, such as primary, secondary, and higher education, and that each are approached differently. Now here is a model called the Digital Intelligence, or DQ model, for the 8 to 12-year-old children category. This model sees digital literacy as a subset of a larger set of 8 competencies, including digital identity, digital rights, digital communication, digital emotional intelligence, digital security, digital safety, and digital use. DQ is the sum of technical, mental, and social competencies essential to digital life, and contains the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values required to thrive as responsible members of the online world, and to be confident in handling the challenges and demands of the digital era. And here's a visualization of those 8 items on the DQ color wheel. You can see within each section the types of skills and knowledge kids should have in order to be considered digitally literate. And incidentally, the first time I saw this color wheel was at the Rockcliffe Library on Avacon. Ribble and Bailey define 9 elements of digital citizenship, which include digital literacy. And here, again, we can see some familiar themes. Now, digital fluency is a step beyond what many believe digital literacy ought to be, requiring competencies and capabilities that go beyond the skill level. Digital fluency is a combination of digital or technical proficiency, or being able to understand, select, and use the technologies and technological systems. Digital literacy, which are cognitive or intellectual competencies, such as being able to read, create, evaluate, and make judgments, and apply technical skills while doing so. Social competence, or dispositional knowledge, which is the ability to relate to others and communicate with them effectively. The difference between being digitally literate and digitally fluent, for example, would be like following instructions to set up a shared document, meaning that's literate, versus finding the best tool to set up the document and collaborate effectively using it. That's digital fluency. And the last model I'm going to discuss here is based on the very recent Digital Literacy Impact Study, which describes 3 digital literacies. These are focused not only on skill development, but on gaining relevant learning experiences that can be translated to workforce readiness for college graduates. Universal literacy is concerned with the ability to use basic tools, such as office productivity tools and content authoring tools. Creative literacy takes these skills further by requiring the ability to create rich content using different multimedia software, along with a good understanding of what it means to be a good digital citizen and copyright knowledge. Literacy across discipline refers to the specific knowledge, such as ethics, and social networking within domain-specific contexts like sociology or psychology. The idea here is that mastery of these three literacy prepares students for future success in the world of work, where it is currently estimated that 65% of the job Gen Z people will hold do not currently exist. And the image on the right here is the visual representation of this model. And you have probably noticed on these slides that there are references at the bottom. I also have references at the end of the presentation if you would like to look at those. It appears that much of digital literacy training that occurs in higher ed is geared towards the use and evaluation of information, but not in the actual creation of information using digital tools. And that same study confirms that other aspects of digital literacy, such as laws, rights and responsibilities, and security of using media and technology, are either not taught at all or minimally taught. So to tie this up, the five definitions that I've just given you are taken from a wide variety of sources, and they illustrate the current situation with regard to digital literacy. The problems that result from not being digitally literate reach across populations in all age groups, and while definitions may differ in level or detail of abstractness, what is clear is that it has been recognized as a significant problem that needs to be addressed. This is evident in the number of proposed solutions put forth by the Association of College and Research Libraries, the International Society for Technology and Education, JISC, and many, many others. We'll now discuss some of those solutions. Okay, so the Association of College and Research Libraries released its Framework for Information Literacy for Higher Education in 2015. This framework is not based on a set of standards, learning outcomes, or set of skills that must be mastered. Instead, the framework draws significantly upon the concept of meta-literacy and is composed of 6 frames that each contain a main concept in information literacy, a set of knowledge practices, and a set of dispositions, which are habits of mind for learners who are developing their information literate abilities. These 6 frames include: authority is constructed and contextual. This is about the trustworthiness of information and the ability to find it. Information creation as a process. This is about how information is produced. Information has value. This obviously is about the value of information, which we all know is increasingly getting more expensive. Research as inquiry. Scholarship as conversation. This is about communities of practice. And searching as strategic exploration. This is one about we don't just use a single source of information in our work. We're constantly looking for several sources and trying to reconcile them. While the framework is intended for librarians and other educators to use when developing their own information literacy programs, including digital literacy, other educators and institutions can use the framework as a tool for making sure these 6 important concepts are translated into actionable steps that result in digitally literate citizens. And yes, Beth, that's what we're going to do. My presentation is only about a half an hour, and after that we're going to talk about creating a community of practice around digital literacy. Okay, so the European Commission recognizes that Europe is also facing skills challenges that include digital competence. The European Digital Competence Framework for Citizens, or DIGCOM, was developed by the Joint Research Center, JRC, of the European Commission, with input from several stakeholders from European industry, education, employment, and social partners. The resulting framework was published in 2013 and helps improve digital competence for citizens, helps policymakers with creating policies that support digital competence, and provides common terminology for describing and identifying key areas of digital competence. The 5 main competence areas include information and data literacy, such as browsing, searching, filtering data, evaluating data, and managing data. Communication and collaboration, including interacting, sharing, engaging in citizenship through digital technologies, as well as etiquette and managing digital identity. Digital content creation includes developing digital content, integrating and re-elaborating digital content, copyright and licenses, and programming. And safety is concerned with protecting devices, personal data and privacy, protecting health and well-being, and protecting the environment. Problem solving includes solving technical problems, identifying needs and technological responses, creatively using digital technologies, and identifying digital competence gaps. The framework is used generally by groups that formulate policy, do instructional planning, and for assessment and certification. The Joint Information Systems Committee, or JISC, has created a guide called Developing Digital Literacies, originally published in 2014. JISC is an organization that provides digital solutions for the UK education and research. The main components for developing digital literacies include strategic perspectives on digital literacies and developing digital literacies in practice. Strategic perspectives are mainly concerned with infrastructure for support of digital literacy. While development in practice are more concrete actions for implementing a program. And this figure shows the 7 elements of digital literacy as defined by JISC. And we can see several familiar ideas expressed in this figure. Another solution has been developed by the International Society for Technology in Education. ISTE is an organization of educators that help other educators solve tough problems in education using technology. They have developed a set of standards for students and a separate set for educators, both of which address the issue of digital citizenship. Each circle has a definition and a set of actions associated with each standard, represented by circles in the figure. While the standard of citizen for educators addresses the need to establish the environment for students to acquire digital literacy skills, the Digital Citizen Standard for students requires a demonstration of their understanding and acquisition of digital literacy knowledge and skills. And finally, we come to the place where we describe what we're doing in virtual worlds. The Community Virtual Library, or CVL, created a temporary exhibit in Second Life in 2017 that ran from late February through December. It focused on digital citizenship and encompassed a diverse group of presenters, from librarians and educators to artists and nonprofit representatives. They pull together their expertise in digital citizenship to create an immersive educational experience with the goal of bringing awareness of digital citizenship to the virtual world community as a whole. Topics included digital health literacy, digital citizenship for kids, digital citizenship for avatars, digital citizenship through the eyes of an artist, authentic avatars, and many, many more. As a result of continued favorable responses, the CVL Board of Directors decided to open a permanent museum on Kitely. Now, the mission of the CVL Digital Citizenship Museum is to be a leader in the pursuit to make sure every person is digitally literate through education, raising awareness, and building community around the challenges and solutions of digital literacy. This space encompasses the diverse definitions and best practices previously presented, as well as new information and research as it becomes available. While virtual worlds are small in comparison to the rest of the digital world, by creating a networked community of digital citizens who are willing to engage with us, the Digital Citizenship Museum on Kitely could have a significant impact on this challenge. We are hoping to attract digital literacy experts for developing content in the museum and immersive experiences, as well as enthusiastic learners who can help spread the word. The museum will hold some exhibits that were present. Okay, wait, first of all, the museum is part of Cookie 2, which is a series of islands in Kitely. But it also houses the branch of CVL over there. But the museum will hold some of those exhibits that were present in Second Life, with enough space left to hold new exhibits. These exhibits can expand to include the challenges and will expand to include the challenges and solutions we have presented in this paper, so we can define the problem. The first phase of the museum is complete, and we actually have a tour scheduled at noon on March 23rd as part of this conference. At the museum, we also have a comfortable space for invited presentations and community networking. So these next few slides contain images from the museum to give you an idea of the space. Many of you may recognize this sim because it uses the free Welcome Center sim created and made available by Linda Kelly. What we really liked about this space is that we could use each building as a separate exhibit. Here you can see the Digital Citizenship building by Valibrarian on the right, and my own exhibit on digital citizenship for kids and cybersecurity exhibit by Eric Moore to the left, far left. Here are the exhibits by Starlight Dark Matter, Digital Citizens, Avatars, and AI on the left, and the Interstellar Art exhibit by Ellie Thorfell on the right. Zinnia Zauber also has her authentic avatar exhibit up, and on the right is Lear Lobo's Journey into the Unknown, Women in STEAM. I want to mention that Zinnia's exhibit actually takes up 3 buildings and Lear's is 2 buildings. And here's a close-up of Val's exhibit. One difference between the exhibit as it appeared in Second Life and as it is seen here is that in Second Life the exhibits were in slide objects that you needed to flip through in order to see the presentation. On Kitely, we've taken the individual slides and made pictures from them, and in order to experience the exhibit you must walk around the building. This is Zinnia's exhibit. You'll notice that because her presentation is so colorful, we tried to add touches that match this theme. The top right photo is looking down on the first building, and the lower left is looking into the second building from the first, and the lower right is looking into the third from the second. And here's Lear's exhibit. And again, we try to create a theme around the presentation. Another exhibit is from Elise Donovan-Jones on the Connecting Communities work she's done for San Jose State University iSchool and the Community Virtual Library. Cybersecurity is another important aspect of digital literacy because it has to do with safety. Eric Moore's exhibit addresses this issue. And this is actually my own exhibit on digital citizenship for kids, but what I wanted to show you here was that we wanted to highlight that we can add interactive objects. The objects, what I've been showing you is just slides on the wall, but it's not just limited to that. We are encouraging contributors to add interactive content to their space. We also have a nice space to hold community meetings and external presentations. There's a lot of seating, as you can see from these pictures. And finally, we still have quite a bit of real estate available for new exhibits. The buildings that are available run the gamut from pretty small, like those on the bottom right corner of this slide, to large, like the ones on the top line of the slide. So we made it to the conclusions. I tried to create a compelling argument that improving digital literacy is gaining visibility as an important but solvable challenge for libraries, colleges, universities, and other educational institutions, including K through 12. I showed that defining digital literacy can depend on the level of detail for competencies and the population involved. Also, we believe it boils down to not just being able to create a checklist of skills, but rather involves critical thinking and reflection, identity, and social cultural contexts. We have included several frameworks and models that can be used as tools that may be useful in creating such a digital literacy lifecycle, beginning with awareness, moving to the development of programs, and finally to the measurement of outcomes. Because the definition is flexible, the next step is to create a digital literacy lifecycle, a model to guide institutions in selecting or creating digital literacy frameworks and programs that best fit the needs of their communities. We also need to create a comparison table for all those models and solutions so that we make sure we're not going to forget something important. While we also encourage educators outside of virtual worlds to consider this issue, virtual worlds are a perfect platform from which to start the conversation and tackle this challenge. Young children are already utilizing virtual worlds like Minecraft, which can embed learning and digital literacy. More research is needed to understand the best practices of utilizing virtual worlds for teaching young people, however. But we believe that the majority of the educators, librarians, and nonprofit users in virtual worlds are part of that 17% of digitally literate people and part of the solution. Rockcliffe University Consortium, which has libraries on several different virtual worlds, has already identified digital literacy as an important challenge and features several in-world displays that highlight the issue. They provide resources for those who would like to learn more. In addition to acting as a kind of interactive framework in itself, the Community Virtual Library's Digital Citizenship Museum is another example of virtual world citizens coming together to teach and spread awareness of digital literacy. With so many great minds and digital experts within virtual worlds, there are bound to be citizens capable of solving the digital literacy crisis, both in their communities and in the broader digital sphere. Will you join the fight? And, you know, if people want these copies of these references, I'm happy to give them to you, but I have 3 pages of them, and I don't expect you to read them all right now. and thank you for your kind attention. So I think I've saved us some time, so let's get working on this, guys. And I think we can open the mic for people if they want to talk. Okay, where is... Okay, I think I lost it. Where is it? Way up there? You know, there's going to be a paper that with all the references in it as well. I'm not sure where the proceedings are going to be, but they will be available as far as I know. Yes, this will be appropriate for students to visit. Any age can come. There will be, as I said, there's already something there for, you know, having digital literacy for kids, and in there are references that kids themselves should use. Well, I think makerspaces do play a role because it's a space in which people collaborate, right? So there needs to be etiquette. There needs to be you know, just ways of interacting with each other, being able to share work and know what we can share and what we can't share. Okay, so there is an email list when the conference proceedings will be available. Exactly, Abu Lafia. There's many aspects of that you know, people, when they're dealing in these spaces, they need to be aware of. And what was amazing to me when I was looking at these studies was it's the number of people that are considered digitally literate is so low, and in the U.S. and I can't say that about other countries, and it'd be interesting if somebody else knows.
I'll try to say something. I'm really sorry if my voice is choppy. Of all days, my internet has been cut out, and I'm using a hotspot. So I wanted you to type a Y if you're able to hear me. I think literacy has rapidly changed, and Marie has done a really good job explaining that, how literacy has changed to include meta-literacy. I think all of us need to really think about those changes. Type a Y in text chat if you agree with that. We need to understand how literacy has changed and be willing to address those changes and learn as much as we can about all the elements required today for digital literacy. And I just wanted to mention that the Community Virtual Library wants to help promote digital literacy and also to help you, all of the advocates of virtual worlds for education. And Marie, talked about our new digital citizenship museum in Kitely. We also have a virtual world database, and there will be a presentation on our database later this afternoon at, I believe it's 4 o'clock Second Life time. And I wondered if any of you have already added your virtual world content to our database. If you haven't, I'll put the link right here. You might want to attend and hear about that, because all of us pooling our talent and our resources together, and the more collaboration we can do in virtual worlds, that's key. We often reinvent the wheel and come up with ideas in virtual worlds that someone else has already done, but we don't even realize it, because it's, you know, it's difficult to find all the information that's out there in virtual worlds. So that's why we're working on a database and really striving for the best connectivity of virtual world communities. The Community Virtual Library considers communities to be real resources, just like, you know, in a physical world library, books and physical objects were considered resources. Well, our communities and our immersive learning environments, those are educational resources too, absolutely. So I think it's going to take all educators together, pooling their skills to make virtual worlds really great learning spaces. The research and design of our new community virtual library space is going to be shared this afternoon at 1 o'clock. And the whole point of that presentation is that collaboration is key. And this conference really proves that, because you see what educators are doing, the high quality work that they're doing. And along with that, today we'll talk a bit more about the Digital Citizenship Museum in Kitely. Second Life certainly isn't the only virtual world. It's still probably the best place for educators to start. But being open to other virtual worlds like Avicon and Kitely, and even web-based worlds like Cyber Lounge are also important. So hopefully you were able to hear what I was saying, and please keep in touch, and I'm going to drop you a note card about the Community Virtual Library so that you can connect and we can help promote the virtual world that you're doing as educators in Second Life and other worlds.
Thanks, Val. That's great. Yeah. So one thing we do want to, you know, stress here is that there's two ways that you can participate in this, and that is just by coming to learn more about it. But the other way is if you have something you would like us to highlight on the museum, please contact Val or myself or Elise, and we would love to work with you on that. If you already have an exhibit over there and you want to add more, please feel free to do so. We would love for you to do that.
Yes, I'll answer that. I've presented at Library 2.0 many times in the past to share about virtual worlds. I'm always amazed that there are so many people who do not understand the potential of virtual worlds because of the steep learning curve. But we will continue to share at that conference whenever possible so that we can get the word out to other librarians about how virtual worlds can be a great learning opportunity and space for librarians.
Elise, why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, Sue. The secondary, I believe, is in the United States, secondary is high school. So usually either 9 through 12 or 10 through 12th grade. Primary is usually kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade, depending on the school system, the school district. Oh, interesting. Yes. So I guess we just figure that after, you know, secondary is university or college. Is that how it is in the UK? Is secondary actually university? Right, Val, and that's the reason that, you know, the fact that you know, constant upgrading, everything changing on a daily basis, that digital literacy by definition cannot, should not be about being able to use specific tools. It needs to be about something much larger than that. Maybe the approach to learning the tools, maybe, you know, understanding design issues, that kind of thing.
That's a good point there about making it the learning curve, the steep learning curve that we have heard about for years and years and years. And that's why, you know, Selby Evans, Thinkerer, is holding office hours in Cyber Lounge, calling that almost way to virtual worlds, because it's so simple. You just come in and at least you can experience immersion, that you actually get that sense of presence with other people that you don't get, you know, elsewhere. And I think that's the key is if you have not experienced that immersion, it's not the same to simply view a machinima and see what other people have done, because you don't get that sense of presence of actually being there.
Right, and you know, the thing is that experience, you know, if you have experience with, say, I don't know, I'm probably dating myself here, but VisiCalc from the 1990s, right? Well, you know how to use that in general, then you're going to know how to use Excel. You're going to know how to use spreadsheets in general. So it's not about knowing specific apps and specific programs. It's about knowing in general how things are designed and how you approach them in terms of the tasks you want to complete. So, Edith, in your question, how do we affect social change by enabling teachers to overcome barriers? Can you? I'm not a teacher, unfortunately, but I'm wondering, is that barriers that having to do with like school districts, people who don't believe that technology should be integrated? And right, and what's interesting here is that if you look at the comments, you know, it's the same problem with defining digital literacy in general, right? We have so many different aspects to it, not just learning, you know, how to use technology, but whether or not the information that we're looking at is trustworthy. And in my opinion, that's a huge part, because we have so much fake news now that and the reason why fake news is successful is because people don't know how to separate the chaff from the wheat. So this discussion is actually really great. I think we might have to wrap it up here because we're at 9:51. But what I wanted to do was, please reach out to one of the three of us if you want to get involved with the Digital Citizenship Museum or the digital literacy community. Because we are really excited about this and we want to take this to the next level. I want to thank you all for coming. This was great, great audience. And thank you again.